本当？見えないでしょ？どこにいるのかな？見えないよ。
What's good, Internet? It's May 7th, and you're listening to Waypoint Radio, episode 395. I'm your host, Rob Zachney, and today I am joined by Matthew Gault.
Hello, sir.
Gita Jackson.
Hello. You got better at saying, what's good, Internet?
Thank you. I just kind of leaned into it, got that lazy morning energy.
Yeah, that's what I was feeling right there. That works for you.
Patrick Klepek.
I'm keeping it together. I'm fine.
You just got to cope a little longer, Patrick. And by that, I mean the entire length of a podcast episode. We also, producing that podcast, Ricardo Contreras.
Yo.
Listeners cannot see this, but Patrick's got this look on his face right now, like his mouth is a little upside down V, like a mischievous anime character. It's very funny.
I'm fine.
It's great. Everyone's fine. You're fine.
Not everyone. You know who's not fine?
Who's not fine?
Ethan Winters. He is having a National Lampoon's-esque European disaster of a vacation because this week we are talking about Resident Evil VIII Village. Village?
Yeah.
It's a village.
Sure.
Can't be too fancy with it. It's continental Europe. It's not,
Continental Europe. Anyway, so we're talking about Resident Evil VIII Village, and Gault, you wrote a review of it for us this week, and Patrick immediately distanced himself from it online, saying, well, look, I didn't write this review. I think I liked it more than this guy did.
I think that is true, right? But Gault and I have had similar, as we discussed the game, I think we've had similar but slightly diverging. Look, I played too many of these games. I'm moiled in the muck. I was made in the fires of Resident Evil. I can't necessarily be as objective about how I feel about them.
It's been really interesting to read these reviews because a lot of them have been people that have been playing Resident Evil for a long time coming out and saying like, yeah, this is a good game. And I recognize that it's a good game, but it's not quite for me. Which is kind of what my takeaway was at the end of the game. And I was kind of shocked to see so many other reviewers kind of come down on that line. I think after 7, which was so full bore on this horror experience, almost claustrophobic, stuck in this mansion in Louisiana.
Well, that game has it doesn't cut the tension whatsoever. Like RE7, well, it's about halfway through the game, and then it turns into a game in the way that like a lot of Resident Evil games tend to. But that's a game like there are no moments of like, it's just like you survive the encounter and then you turn around and there's a terrifying woman in a wheelchair staring at you from around the corner. And it's just like, well, great. I'm just back in this shit again. And whereas RE8 is a little more, I don't know, a little more chill. I don't know if chill is necessarily the word, but relative to RE7 is definitely like a little more, it's okay with giving you specific moments that are like, hey, you could take a breath, like you're good, like you're gonna have a couple moments before things kick up again.
7 felt like an interactive horror film, and 8 feels like a video game, and that's not a negative. It's kind of the feel of them are very, very different. So yeah, what do you guys want to know about Resident Evil: The Village? It's all right. It's an okay Resident Evil game.
I would go beyond that. I do think it's fascinating. I think Resident Evil 8 is fascinating because you can feel so much of the, I don't know with the actual design history of RE7 and how much like it being a VR game was like integral to its design, but there is so much about the claustrophobic nature of RE7 that made the fact that it was also a VR game like really link up. You know, I've made the case that the VR elements of RE7 weren't just additive where it's like, oh, you get to look around, you're surrounded by a space. And it was like genuinely transformative. I think RE7 is a scary game, and then it's an overwhelming experience in VR. You know, I like being scared, and I had to take breaks from RE7 in VR. And they continue that design lineage into RE8, in which there are bigger spaces, right? You have, RE8 has a hub, right, that spokes out. There are bigger spaces where you're wandering around. There is nothing similar to that in RE7. They're like, maybe when you go outside of the house and you have a small backyard that you get to like look around in, but otherwise RE7 is hallways, rooms, and it constantly feels like the walls are, if not closing in upon you, then the Baker family is just like dismantling the walls to find you through them. Like
literally,
quite literally, like nothing. You never feel safe. You never feel at ease in RE7, and it doesn't even have a character like a Mr. X. Or a Lady D. I say Lady D because every time I'm about to say her name, I realize that I'm just going to fumble it out. Can you say her name, Gault? Do you actually know how to pronounce it?
No, I'm terrible. My mouth can't do French. It's terrible.
All right. But
Dimitrescu?
Well, isn't
that sounds right?
That more like a Croatian name?
No, it's French. She's explicitly French.
Dimitrescu.
Dimitrescu. Yeah, I think I told you. Sorry.
My mom is fluent in French, so I'm trying to like summon her in my mind to help you.
They say it in the game, and then I'm like, oh, I'll remember it now. And then I got to this moment. It was like, nope, I didn't.
It's Dimitrescu.
Dimitrescu. Yeah.
I don't do that like that glottal noise very well. Like being too
difficult.
American. It's hard.
Part of it, when my mom is teaching us all French pronunciation in the car, my mom's very normal. She would go through all the vowels, and when you get to it's just like, imagine the Queen of England looking at a plate of doggy poop. And that really unlocks a lot of the essence of Frenchness for me.
I think, though, for the purpose of this conversation, I think Lady D works on two levels. It's simple. But
big
also,
D stands for big demeanor.
Like
Say
this is
Dimitrescu.
Amelie AU.
Just say Dimitrescu like Ethan did.
Yeah.
Totally wrong. Not even
talking.
close.
He says most of the words and it stops.
And it's funny because actually, like, talking about Lady D is actually like an interesting way into talking about the game as a whole. The way that Capcom stumbled into this, a genuine love that people have for this character, like a meme that grew out of the marketing, you would rightly make the assumption after that this character is the centerpiece of this game, will be here from start to finish, is a cornerstone.
She should have been the centerpiece of the game too.
I mean, video game companies send me bad boxes full of things. The thing that Capcom sent me, you can't see this in the webcam, but it's just mean, grumpy looking. I ate
Bucky?
some bad tacos.
Yeah, that's
Chris Redfield.
Redfield.
Like,
it's Chris Redfield, the Bucky of the Resident Evil universe.
Yeah, like my kids woke me up at 4:30 and they usually do it at 5:30 is like what the feeling that this doll has. And what you would think that when you open an RE8 like collector's set, you'd be like, damn, I want a like 11-foot vampire like character to be in my room at all times. And they probably would, and this game would probably have that character be more central to its story, had that not just been sort of an accident that they stumbled into. And I feel like RE8 in general is a company or is a team in real time, like even working out what the form is that they're dealing with.
It feels like a bunch of different little experiments.
Right.
So because kind of to Patrick's point earlier, so the setup of the game is the titular village is like your hub area. And then it's established very early on that you have these 4 different bosses that are kind of controlling the village that you're in. Lady D is one of these bosses, and there's a 5th main boss that's kind of on top of them running them. So the first section of the game, it's just a couple hours, is Lady D's castle. And that feels like a very traditional Resident Evil game, kind of set in a European castle, right, Patrick?
You got some keys. You got some eyeballs that are going indoors.
You're grabbing statues, putting them in the proper place.
Any suits of armor coming into play at some point?
There are suits of armor. You will find them aesthetically throughout the castle, but
there's no Beauty and the Beast. Like you just get your ass kicked.
No, nothing like that.
And that has like a very it's trying to evoke the police station of RE2 and the mansion of RE1. It is a contained space. It feels very much like the Baker household of RE7. Of course, the problem being that chase characters are extremely difficult to do in horror games. And so what I mean by a chase character is a character that stalks the player through either scripted moments in which like I need to run around this corner and get through the door, get to the next location. Or in like a Resident Evil 2, you have a Mr. X, or in Resident Evil 3, you have a Nemesis, in which like, oh, these are characters that have some enemies that have some measure of agency in the world, and that as you're going about your business, which may be more or less fairly low stakes, like I need to get from this room on this side of the mansion to this room on that side of the mansion because I found this key. And there's not much in between me and that except a bunch of doors I've already been through, but there is a character out there, or in this case, a set of characters that I can interact with. This is where like I think RE8 has like a real early stumbling block, and then it gets stronger as it gets to this hub area. But the first 4 hours have you doing a lot of exploring this castle in which you're dealing with basically like RNG and like really boring AI. So like there are the three witches, right? The daughters of Lady D, and then there's Lady D herself. And the witches, you can't do anything about them. You can't attack them until you get into like very particular like boss encounters. You can't shoot them. You just have to avoid them.
And they don't like with Mr. X, you could, if you wanted to, you could stun him. You could put enough headshots into that character to like put him down. And he was reactive in a way that let you know, like, oh, this is going to work. I can pump some bullets into him to buy myself some time. With Lady D and her daughters, it looks like Terminator 2 when they're firing into the cop, and it's just nothing. You get nothing out.
But it doesn't communicate. Yeah.
Well,
it doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't. It's not reactive in any way. So you just
in RE2, I also distinctly remember. Correct me if I'm wrong, because maybe now I'm just like lionizing that aspect of RE2 that was probably like my favorite element. But like the way they did the sound design specifically in the RE2 the remake, I felt like I could very specifically tell when I've entered a room. I had spatial awareness of where Mr. X was. Not specifically, right? Like so I could still be surprised. But like you could be in one part of the police station, and I feel like, oh, he's pretty far. Like, I think I'm good here. Like, I don't have to worry about him immediately coming around the corner, but I definitely feel this pressure on, like, prickly on the back of my neck where, like, he's not that far, but I can go about my business in this room and not worry about it. Whereas the way that these characters are handled in Village is, no one will, if you haven't engaged them, they will not find you, right? So if you're in a room, in a space, and one of the daughters hasn't been spawned, or you haven't seen Lady D and she is like been spawned into your area, you're good. You can handle yourself. But specifically, what happens is the game knows, like, it's like structured the design of this mansion as such, like when you enter like a kind of like the open area, like that's when something is going to happen. Like Lady D is almost, there's a save area in the mansion. You open the door from the save area. She is always going to be there. Like she is always right around the corner. And yes, you could like run up to her and like run around her. Like you can do that. She does do like, the Terminator stalk, but what's a lot easier is just opening the save door, realizing that the one room in the mansion she will never ever go into, no one will ever follow you into, is that save room. And so you can creep open the door. She will walk right up and look at you and then go in another door. And that's what you do every time, is like you're constantly going to the save room because the game doesn't have checkpoints. You're always having to save to your progress. So you're constantly like, whenever I can sneak over to the save room, I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to stand in front of this save room right in this really particular spot till Lady D goes to, it's always the door directly to your right. Like that she walks in front of you, she looks around, and she goes to the door to the right, and then you can sprint across the central area. And at that point, you're just hoping you don't trigger the RNG for like the daughters. And if you do, then like load your save again or just go back in the door and just like get the game to cycle it. And so I think it's a really rough opening. And I think we both agreed on that, Gault, that like there's a lot of promise and like the vibe of it is awesome. And I love all the characters and the design. And I really enjoyed the going for, but the act of doing that opening couple of hours like has some real highs and lows. Yeah,
the first time that she spawns, you're running from her and it's very frightening, but then you realize that if you stand in particular places, you can turn around and look at her and she's just going to stand there. or she's going to wander off and not going to pursue you. And that takes so much out of it. Really just kind of kills that tension of those moments.
But the scripted sequence,
she's such a great villain.
The scripted sequence is like I don't want to spoil like exactly how things play out, but there is an instance where like the first time she truly stalks you and you have to get away from her is in this really confined space. You're in this kind of like dungeon area. You have like maybe 6 tiny rooms to work with. That it's dark. You have no way of countering her. She just slowly stalks you, and you have to like find a key, then put that key in a hole, and you have to wait. You know, Cado, this is what you and I talked about when we played the demo. Is waiting for the key to go through and then the latch to open, and then also there's like a switch you have to pull that is slowly going to open a gate. That gate doesn't open immediately. Like it takes feels like a full minute, and you can sit there and hope she doesn't catch you, or you can like run around, and like that part is fantastic because what it's doing is it's a confined location. It is a scripted, contained event that has a bit of like the AI, like there isn't, it's all the actions of Lady D aren't completely scripted, but it's like, it's within this contained, like they can control the possibility space. And the moment that expands into like the mansion, there's just not enough for the enemy to do to make it dynamic or interesting. It's mostly just a frustrating obstacle for you to grapple with. They're just so at odds to any of the story sequences, which just are tremendous. Like she commands the camera to such a degree that you just want. I would just sit and like watch the performance is great. Like it's so much fun and it's so scary and weird. And like that character specifically is something I miss about the VR. That character's scale in VR would be fucking terrifying. And you lose a little bit of that when you're playing on a flat screen.
How far have you gotten, Patrick? Since last time we talked.
There is I went to go visit the tiny villain's area, which is like when you get to this hub area, and then you can kind of, it's not like an open world, but you're like, you get some options on what you can do. There's a lot of exploring and like you can do, and I'm off to a new area, and I'm in a sequence that I don't want to say the specifics of, but this is a much more action-oriented RE. It is like definitely evoking a lot of Resident Evil 4 while also trying to take the sort of perspective shift of RE7 and like see what they come up with. I'm in a sequence where they've taken away my guns. And it's fucking awesome. This is
the second little PT sequence
vibes.
Here. Yeah, very much like an homage to PT.
And it's great. And it's scary. It has probably the most unsettling enemy that I have encountered in the game so far. I described it to Robin Austin. I don't want to say what it is, like in a message last night. And like what happens?
Did you hide under that bed, Patrick?
I did. Have you died to that thing?
No.
Oh no! You need to go whenever there are clips. I don't even want to describe it because I want people to discover for themselves. It is.
No. Well, the second I saw that thing, I was like, no, getting away, turning around.
So part of what I'm getting at here, and even bringing it up, is I think, this game isn't as scary as RE7. I understand why they went in this direction. I think RE7 limited the scope of who could even play it because not only of its like reputation, but its earned reputation. Like I think that game is too much for a lot of people. I've talked to people who like scary games, like Resident Evil games, played about an hour of RE7 and said, nah, like not this one. And I get that. I find it personally disappointing because that's the roller coaster high that I am chasing. Like every time my wife and I turn on a horror film is like, all right, you've scared me this way. How do I feel that way again? And RE7 was like this rare instance in which like a game really got under my skin. And RE8 still has those moments. Like it is more action oriented. I think that is where it is honestly at its weakest. I think that the gunplay is not that great. It's better than RE7, but it is clearly not a strength. This team is struggling to figure out how to do action in first person. And the gunplay is not terrible, but I also wouldn't call it good. It's serviceable enough for the sequences that are required. The difference is here, there are just a lot more of those sequences. And I think it has an all-time poor opening. Using the clumsy pistol to fight a werewolf, which is like the first combat sequence you have, left such a poor taste in my mouth that I worried that I wasn't going to like anything about what they were doing in Village. And it smooths out and it gets into a better place as it goes along.
Is that
but it is the case that the gunplay is sort of like it's fine, but
I was trying to sorry, Cado.
No, I was just gonna ask. I played the gameplay demo, which I think has that moment you're talking. Is that the one where
the
you
werewolves
can find the shotgun in the shed?
I didn't play that demo, but yeah, it's roughly that area.
Yeah.
Like the way it plays out, at least in the main game, is like you're out in front of a house and you have a pistol and the wolf is doing like it's strafe dance. It's like it's Resident Evil 7 and 8. The way these enemies work is they just like they do like the
dance of
like,
the lycanthrope.
Yeah.
Well, all the enemies like they like part of the RE team has done in RE2, RE7, and RE8 is all the enemies have some sort of dance move to like throw you off because the bit of these games is we'll shoot them in the head, so they always have to have some sort of groovy tune going on internally to get their body moving so they can have that head move around. I found like one of the other enemy types that you fight in RE8, like these kind of lumbering like decrepit humans that carry giant swords, and theirs actually is like a really neat enemy design because like it's the sword that throws off their like kind of unnatural body movements. So they're trying to lift these giant objects, which makes it difficult for you to hit them in the head, but also kind of creates a natural sort of like weird like off kilter rhythm for like trying to shoot them. Whereas with the werewolf, I just feel like I'm in like the Thriller music video. I'm like do and like the werewolf has to shift to the left and the right
with a garbage gun.
To make and it's fine. But it's fine. Is how I feel about the gunplay.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna ask like that. There's this like tension here where like I feel like if you get too, I played 4 on a Wii with motion controls, which meant the accuracy is actually almost it's better than like using 6 on a controller.
Probably too good.
Yeah,
like the game is not designed for you to be that accurate.
Exactly. And so like I was kind of wondering about how you're saying that the pistol is bad, and is that mostly that they've overtuned it to be hard to hit, maybe a too much, or is it that gun just like doesn't do nearly enough damage and therefore it takes too long even if when you're hitting hits, like where's the like issue?
I think it's overtuned. Because I've been thinking about this a lot. I actually went back and played some RE4 because I was in my review as I was describing why the combat felt disappointing at 8, I was like, but this just sounds like a Resident Evil game. Right? The enemy, like, you're going to kind of plant yourself. The enemies aren't going to super respond to getting shot. Sometimes you're going to get a headshot, that will give a big, response. And I think it comes down to, like Patrick was saying, the enemies are faster. There's more of them. And they dance. They really, you get trained on that headshot, and that lichen gives you a head dodge, and then it rushes you and bites you in the face.
Yeah,
and you never for a game that's going.
How it is.
Yeah.
Classic werewolf technique. So what we end up doing is I don't know where you settled, Gault, on your play style, but mine was always I would really try to conserve my shotgun bullets, and so I'd get up close, shoot him with the shotgun, pull out the knife, which is fairly powerful, and just which is a classic RE technique you do with the zombies, where you would get the zombies on the ground, want to save your pistol and shotgun ammo, and you would, tank control your way up to the zombie, zoop, 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 back up, and then shoot him in the head with one pistol shot, and that still totally works here, and is a very legitimate technique, and that's how I've. But also, being so meticulous in that way is also how I end up breaking these games, because they're trying to be so specific with your ammo count and keep you on your toes. But it's no. If I'm patient and I just knife all these motherfuckers, I can have 150 pistol bullets and not worry about it. I have heard there's been sort of a consensus from folks who have played a lot of these games that if you have played these before, you're looking for a challenge, like you should really bump the difficulty up from normal to whatever the hard is, and because I guess it makes the AI more aggressive and more interesting. They remove bullets from the world, and I guess it just makes it bumps up the survival part. I've had I've had a fine time on normal, even though I'm not dying, but also I often play these games less for the survival aspect, more for the atmosphere and weirdness, and like it has delivered on that part. It's a really
to the weirdness though. There's something I've been wanting to get to for a little bit here, which is that Gault mentioned there's a third act sort of tonal shift, and everyone's like, Resident Evil Village is like, really, it's more like Resident Evil 4. But Gault, when we were working on the edit, was like, well, it might be Resident Evil 6 by the end. Yeah, which was alarming. Yeah. And I've seen some people, like, I've seen a lot of the general reaction we've already described, but I've seen a couple people be like, wow, it gets kind of weird and schlocky toward the end in ways that are not necessarily what you're looking for.
I want to read this tweet from Julie Muncie, who has written for us in the past, wrote a fantastic Kingdom Hearts 3 review from a couple of years back. Losing steam on the second half is a classic Resident Evil tradition. The quintessential Ari formula is to spend the first half of the game exploring an evocative novel setting, and in the second half going underground and doing Ari bullshit until you find a rocket launcher. Which is this tweet has 3,000 likes and 500 retweets for a reason, which is like, that is, I feel like this happens every time a Resident Evil comes out, is like, damn, great first half. What's up with that second half though? And like that, it's
like no one talks about the ship segment of Resident Evil 7, right? No one likes that part of the game.
No one liked. I dislike the entire second half of RE7 and still think it's probably one of my favorite games of all time, because I don't even hold it against it. I'm just like, yeah, this is just how you build these games. Like it's the really novel, interesting first half. And I think
but Patrick, Gault's played the end, so I'm curious what
I've heard. This is pretty like specifically bad. So I'm curious, knowing that, where does this rank in Resident Evil going for the rocket launcher, need to fight a tyrant equivalent, have to increase the spectacle, and lose all of the charm and novelty of the weird setting of the lineage of the franchise?
You are about to jump off a huge cliff.
Oh, great.
Like, as soon as you're done with that boss section that you're on now, like, the next two are pretty terrible. The third one is one long action set piece.
That sounds right.
Yeah, and it's just, it feels like it was ripped from a different game. It's very tonally different. You'll see. It sucks. And then
what game? What kind of game?
You know what's weird? Like, the thing that immediately popped into my brain was like Mirror's Edge, but with guns. You'll see. It's weird. It's real weird. So after that, you go to the German part of the Continental village to fight Heisenberg, and it's all set in a factory, and it gets very like biomachine stuff. One of the bosses that I mentioned in my review is a guy that's got a propeller for the upper half of his body that's chasing you around. So it's the same kind of chase that you were doing with the super creepy thing in the second part, but now this guy's got a propeller attached to it. The whole thing devolves. And then the very, very end, the very last act, it goes full Call of Duty, but with werewolves. And I think like Gene Park in his Washington Post piece explicitly compared it to Call of Duty Modern Warfare in its final moments. And the Resident Evil games always do this, right? Just like you said, but they manage the creep better in other games. Like by the end of 7, I was so happy with everything that had come before it that, I was this badass moving through the ship, mowing down all these mushroom monsters, and it felt okay. It was a reasonable Resident Evil ending. This really feels like it goes for the 5 and 6 territory at the very end of it, and you'll see when you get there. But it was like they didn't know how to write, and they didn't know what kind of ending to write for it, so they just decided to blow everything up.
Well, yeah, that's because the story of like is the story of RE8 is like even by Resident Evil standards like just bullshit nonsense. Like from the go, I don't know what's been in the marketing, so I don't want to spoil specific like plot beats. But you know, you are picking up beloved Ethan Winters, the main character from RE7, a character who in all the marketing for even RE8. Capcom like wouldn't show his face, leading to theories that maybe you weren't playing as Ethan Winters, but all the characters in the trailer kept saying Ethan Winters. Like for all of RE7's greatness, it didn't establish like a new Jill Valentine, Chris Redfield. It didn't like create a character. It felt like, and that was fine. Like it was totally appropriate for the setting and what they were going for, to be playing just sort of some anonymous dude that was trying to save, his family. And like, you turn into a badass by the end, whatever. Like that was fine. The weird part was them going like, what the sequel needs is to pick up with these characters that we have no emotional attachment to and keep it going with them and try and fit that in with the larger RE lore. Because this, like, I genuinely, like, I was having a discussion with someone about this privately, about the game, and they were, like, trying to figure out if they were going to stream it or not, and, like, what was under embargo. And they spoiled, like, an end game thing for me that was, like, listed in Capcom's, like, don't talk about this stuff. And they
I think I know what you're talking about.
They apologized, Brad Shoemaker, but they apologized for spoiling it for me, but my response was, like, dude, that could be a giant, like, who even knows? Like, like this is a game where, so the game will be out so I can, this is a game where at times, like, your arm falls off and you just reattach it and, like, you just keep moving. And it's not explained. Like, I mean, it's like, look, you know, the game is clearly like
explanation.
That moment felt very like, hey, remember this happened in Resident Evil 7? Well, now it's happening in Resident Evil 8.
Well, I mean, look, from the go, this game is like hinting that like stuff is awry in a way that is like different than just like, engineering by the Umbrella Corporation or whatever the company is that's doing
Maybe the T-Virus isn't behind this one.
Yeah, I don't know. So, it's all just to say it feels very stapled together. The rumors of this game's development are that, that it was a non-RE game that became an RE game, which I should say, like, is also like sounds fairly normal for how Capcom makes it. They let their teams go experiment, and it doesn't necessarily have to be an X, Y, or Z, and then they kind of figure out as they go along. Pretty normal and typical with making games, especially in big tentpole franchises. But this one in particular feels like it could have just been Resident Evil 8, but like, why does it have to be Ethan Winters? Why did we need Chris Redfield to take like a weird like character shift that's like, he's the hero. Like, why does he have to show up and be an asshole in the beginning? Like, none of this stuff, it feels so forced even for Resident Evil that I just wish this game had been Resident Evil 8. Also weird shit was happening in a village, and just like let me play as a random villager that gets pulled into the strangeness of what's going on. And that's where this game feels like, from a design perspective, it is a team still figuring out, we made a first-person Resident Evil. What do we do now? And then like, we have like 25 years of complicated lore, like, and a character nobody cares about. And like, it still works. Like, I want them to continue this form. Like, I love the fact that we don't get big budget horror all the time, and like the fact that we have a first person big budget horror game like sings to me, and like the highs of this game are so incredibly high that I want to see this team keep playing in this field. But the lows are pretty low, and I don't know. It's just a very strange game. I'm very glad it exists. I think people are going to like it a lot, but it is tremendously weird and not always in the best ways. But I don't know, maybe part of the ricketiness is also like kind of cool. Like,
I mean, that's always been part of the charm of Resident Evil, that things are super strange and they don't always quite work, but there's always these great moments within it that you remember, and then you kind of forget the ship or you forget the factory, or you forget.
I forgot the ship was even in RE7, and that's a game I'm like, yeah, this game fucking rules. Like, I love this game. And then you mentioned the ship, and like, I was like, oh no, right? The ship sequence was really bad.
You completely blocked out how that game ended. All you remember is Jack Baker bursting through the walls and scaring the crap out of you.
I don't remember leaving that mansion, and it's like, or that house, and eventually you did. So,
two things I wanna tag on there. Their attempt to turn Ethan Winters from generic everyman to badass Resident Evil protagonist super does not land. It's implied that between the games he's been getting some sort of military training and has been in contact with Chris Redfield. Yeah, Rob is laughing. And like
he's been reading some wikis.
Yeah, he's got like it's got that segment at the beginning of the game where you can wander around their home after they've read their child a book, and like his bookshelf is full of like how to survive in the wilderness and how to make your own ammunition and all this kind of stuff. And then but they never. This gets really bizarre towards the end of the game. You never see Ethan Winters' face. He's supposed to be the protagonist that the player projects themselves onto, right? They pull out for some wide angle like cutscenes later, but they always make sure that like someone's arm is covering Ethan Winters' face.
Wait, he's like Wilson in Home Improvement?
Yes, exactly. You never get to see him. It's very strange.
And also like this, like also this survival stuff, like is like there's a mechanic where the shopkeeper like sort of character who I should, as brief aside, like really grotesque fat phobic like design in which the game is not, whereas like Lady D feels like they accidentally stumbled into like a large unsaid kink in the gaming community, like. Nothing like that with the Duke. It's just like, what's funny is like a big fat grotesque character and like, ha ha ha, look how like fat he is. And it sucks and is like, you have like the yin of Lady D and the yang of the Duke, and like it doesn't work. And
have you made any meals for the Duke yet?
Right, so that's what I was getting to, is that like one of the mechanics of the game, and this services both points I'm making, is he wants you to make him some food so that you can get like these permanent stat upgrades, like a big health update, or you can guard against attacks. And so what you end up, like that part's gross, is like because it just feeds into this really disgusting character design, because like one of the things you have to do is like go make meals for him. But then also the survival aspect of Ethan Winters, where it's like, the game will mark on the map like, this is where the chickens are, and it's like I'm squatting on the ground, like swinging a knife wildly, trying to like kill these chickens so I can bring them back to the Duke. Or you're like looking through a house, rummaging for bullets, and then you hear like, and it's like, oh, there's a pig nearby. Better get out my fucking shotgun, blast it in the face, so I can collect the rare meat to bring back to the Duke. Or I don't know, like there's this little pond and I see some fish and I'm out here again swinging my fucking knife so I get these.
So the game just becomes Cooking Mama, essentially. Like what? Like why are you out here searching for rare meat?
It's weird.
It's the only way to improve your max health and like your max stamina and your speed is to feed the Duke meals from the animals you've killed in the village.
Which you don't even really need to do. Like, I haven't died in this game. Like, I looked, it's like, greatly increased my health. It's like,
the only time I want to hear people talking about rare meat, it's like when Rob Zachney gets some kind of cured nonsense.
My cheesemonger is my stocking cured Serrano ham. So,
yeah. Listen, I know all of you.
The other thing I wanted to mention was Patrick, you'd said something spoilery happens in the opening moments of this game. Mm-hmm. Karen was sitting on the couch next to me watching me play the opening of this, and she's like, why did that just happen?
Yeah.
And I turned to her and I was like, I would have to explain 20 years of dumb backstory to explain why that thing even kind of maybe makes sense.
But even like the sequence that occurs is so over the top.
Yes.
And
it's an RE6 moment.
there is a hyperviolence moment in the first 10 minutes of this game involving one of the main characters that is so, it's not like unsettling in like the fun RE7, RE8 like grotesque character design, like monster movie sort of thing. It's just RE6 doesn't look like a realistic game. It's a cartoon that has Chris Redfield at one point punching a boulder. Or is that RE5? That's RE5. Has Chris Redfield punching a boulder in a quick time event sequence to try and move it out of the way. This game has like that sort of exaggerated violence, but with hyper realistic visuals. Like you watch a character die in a not a like fun monster way, but in like a realistic violence sort of way. That's just like what? And it doesn't stop immediately. Like it just keeps going.
It was a real bizarre way to open the game.
And I clearly, it's intentional. It's meant to shock, but it's not. I don't think they got the shock they were going for. It mostly just felt weird and upsetting. It was like, okay, you could have made your point 5 seconds ago.
It feels like they're attempting to set up someone as an antagonist, and then spoiler, they don't pay that off.
Oh, great!
So look forward to that.
I'm sure that's DLC.
But it doesn't succeed in striking a Cronenbergian note of welcome.
No.
Okay.
No, it's not not a Cronenbergy moment at all. It's very strange. Like Patrick said, it's like cartoon and real world violence mixed together, and it's very odd.
Yeah, it's like, okay, we're trying a little too hard here now. So
it'd be like an edgelord scripted that moment.
Yeah, no, yeah. Like strong vibes.
Well, I mean, Ethan turned into an edgelord between games where he's like, gotta read my survivalism books. Molan Labe, motherfuckers. But yeah, so I mean, the thing is, a lot of people, the general consensus seems to be, and Gault, you even said this, you're like, it's a good Resident Evil game with all that implies.
Yep.
But at the same time, I did kind of get the vibe that just like, by the end, you were more like, it wasn't just the deviation from expectation that was disappointing you. It was also like, even on its own terms, by the end, it sounded a bit like you were put off by how they landed it. Can we do spoilers? I think it would be a little bit easier. I think we should.
I would wait.
Okay.
Speaking like generalities, maybe, but this game would just be coming out as this comes out.
Hey everybody, your friendly neighborhood producer here, Cado. Just to give you a quick spoiler warning, despite what we just said, there will be spoilers for the end of RE8. They're more general lore spoilers, so if you don't care about that, you can keep listening, but if you do want to avoid them, you should skip the next 2 minutes and that'll put you clear past those spoilers. Enjoy!
I would say that like that energy of the opening moment returns in a big way for like the last hour. The last hour of the game is that opening moment again. And it felt like such a tonal it felt like they remembered at the very end of the game that they had to attach the greater Resident Evil mythology to it. They had to bring in the Umbrella Corporation. They had to, figure out a way to get the main characters from the other games involved to continue the story. And in rushing to do that, they made some bizarre choices that don't feel like they land within the game they were trying to make, if that makes sense.
Do you think we're poised for just a full repeat of the Resident Evil series cycle of life, where it's like Resident Evil 7?
Yes.
Yeah, that's some good horror. Resident Evil 8. Okay, that's a really uneven, but some good action and some good horror, but like uneven, not sure. And like, you think Resident Evil 9, it's going to be like Zero Dark Zombie.
Yes. Zero Dark Zombie is a very interesting analogy that you threw out there, because some of the story beats that they tease at the end of this and the direction that they're kind of pointing for where they want to go with a sequel, Zero Dark Zombie, I could see it. I could see them doing that. There's some interesting soldiers at the end of this game, is what I will say.
All right. Well, nothing says Resident Evil like troops. So we will look forward to Resident Evil 9. But in the meantime, I guess you can get Resident Evil Village right now. Now you know what you're in for. It ain't more 7.
It's good. It's good. People are gonna like it.
It's got enough of it. Like there are like the sequence I got to, the like just taking away your guns. Like I do like that they haven't fully lost that. The team clearly still wants to build those things. I think what they've tried to do here is an ebb and a flow, and like some of it works, some of it. I mean, yes, I do. Like mask off, like. Fuck y'all cowards who were too scared to play RE7, which means I didn't get the game that I deserved, which was a sequel to that game. This isn't it. This isn't a sequel to RE7. This is just like meeting in the mainstream for a bunch of people who couldn't hack RE7, and so I have to deal with like occasionally getting the scary sequence in RE8 and some good highs, but it's not what I was looking for.
All right, so we're gonna take a break there while Patrick prepares his Change.org petition for the Capcom cut.
Thanks, Obama.
Resident Evil Village. We'll be back in just a minute here with the second half of our show. Gault, I believe you are tagging out to go do real work.
This is real work.
It is. But thanks for joining us, and we'll have you back soon.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I love all of you, and I will see you later.
Where can people follow your work? Where can they see what you're up to?
I'm on the Twitter box at MJGAULT, and I have a podcast about current affairs and war called Angry Planet. Wherever fine pods are casted is where you can find that.
We love that.
All right. Well, thanks so much, and we'll talk to you again soon.
All right. Thank you so much.
And we're back. Gita, I just have one question.
Hello.
Where are we dropping?
So there's a new Apex Legends mode, and it doesn't involve dropping anywhere. Yeah.
No dropping.
Oh my god.
No dropping. Yeah, there's a brand new mode, and it's really, really fun because it gives you the thing about Apex Legends that Respawn is so good at, which is those very intense, really fast-paced gunfights that you only get to experience like once every 4 games in regular Apex Legends because it's a battle royale. And like, I don't know about other people, but when I play battle royales, I'm never prepared when a gunfight is about to happen. I'm always surprised. And so I'm never really able to be at the best of my ability. And I think that's what makes battle royales so exciting, right? That you can't like everything's different every single time. But the new mode allows you to like use all the characters' abilities to the best of your ability. And anyway, so it's called Apex Legends Arenas. And it is very much, just like Apex Legends itself was very much trying to chase the hero shooter and like Fortnite, this is trying to chase Valorant in some ways, you can tell. It's 3v3 matchups on really small maps. And you have an economy phase before you start playing. So you start off with a low amount of currency and you can buy a gun, health and shield charge, as well as you can no longer charge, there's no longer, your abilities are no longer on a cooldown. You have to buy charges, and that includes your ult. So that is like a huge change. But it's mostly
question?
Yes.
Quick question. Are you capped on that? Like if you are flush with cash, can you just be like, my character's going to be ridiculously unbalanced. I have a shit ton of charges.
No, you can get up to 3 charges on your tactical and 1 charge on your ultimate. We actually, I was playing on stream with Mikhail from Washington Post, who is a delightful and strange human being, very, very kind. And him and his friend Ro, we had a situation in which, so it's rounds of 3, and then if you ever tie, you get sent into a tiebreaker, which is just another 2 extra rounds. And then if you lose the tiebreaker, you are sent back to having to play more rounds. But if you win the tiebreaker, the next match round you play is match point.
Yeah,
it's kind of confusing.
You have to win by 2, basically. So if you get to what would have been match point, but the other team catches up, then it goes into whoever pulls ahead by 2 wins.
Yeah.
So it has that Counter-Strike thing of the possibility of endless overtime?
Yes. Very much so. That happened to us. That happened to me and Mikhail and Ro on stream, where we were behind, and then we got to a tiebreaker, and we were like, fuck yes. And then we won the tiebreaker, and we were like, fuck yes. We hadn't gotten a dub yet, so we were like really excited too. And then we lost the match point, and we were like, God damn it. Because we couldn't, I bought my ult in the last round of the tiebreaker, and I couldn't use it during the match point round. And that really set us behind. And we were like, and the other team had regrouped and changed their strategy and were flanked us. So all these things that I think about in the Battle Royale version of Apex Legends, I feel like in arenas, I can finally actually apply it because no one's surprising me anymore.
So this I find kind of fascinating because you're right, like to an extent, Respawn is great at making those like close in, like knife fight in a phone booth type shooters. But yeah, like Battle Royales are games really about hunting dynamics in some ways, and not necessarily that. Like when clutching it out happens, I'm the same way, Gita, where I'm always startled when it comes down to that. Like to the point where no matter how many years I've been trying to internalize switch weapons don't reload, I am still like ineffectually blasting the entire magazine all over the room and then just being like mashing R.
That's me every time. I always will scream if I don't stream those games because I'm always like
it's tragic, but I think what interests me here is like it carries off that sort of competitive game like tactical dynamics structure, despite being like it still feels like Apex Legends, but they just constrained it in a way that it feels like a successful competitor to Valorant.
Yeah, I was playing with Mikhail mostly when he streams. He mostly plays Valorant, and he was able to the skills he learned from Valorant were very transferable. I would say it is sort of like in the tradition of how Apex is, like the abilities are really useful. They feel less necessary than they are in a game like Overwatch, where your ability cooldowns are something you pay attention to so much because they can really make or break the game. But it's very interesting to watch these abilities though become decontextualized in a situation where you can't use them infinitely, and also you're just like in much closer quarters. So some of the things that feel less useful in a battle royale become extremely useful when you are just going to be sort of ducking in and out of cover and need to reposition really quickly. Like for example, the team composition of Horizon, who has a tactical ability that allows them to sort of create a launch pad for any character. It's like a grav thing. And then Octane, whose tactical ability allows him to run much faster. And then the new character, Valkyrie, who's just can fly. She just has a jetpack. She just has one. Like, that team comp is now terrifying to see. That would not really be useful in the Battle Royale because you don't need to have that much speed. But in this game, in the arenas, when we played against an Octane, Horizon, and a Valk, and I never want to see that team comp ever again. It's terrifying. They will just come and find you and just destroy you because Valkyrie's also, her tactical ability is a missile barrage that she can aim at you from the air. And it really like just flushes people out from cover. And then before you can even think about it, Horizon and Octane are on top of you. So,
God, you know what this is also reminding me a little bit of is Lawbreakers. To an extent, which was like hearing you describe this, especially Valkyrie, like Lawbreaker's entire thing, probably to its ultimate detriment, was the fact that like the coolest shit was like, what if we just put a badass in some sort of armored suit and had them just like blast people with big weapons? And I know that sounds like every sci-fi shooter, but like it was really extreme in Lawbreakers.
Yeah.
But like that whole thing was about like these characters aren't superheroes, but they have like super heroic powers to like mobility, to just sort of zip around the map and like sort of take high ground wherever and just like rain hell down on people below. And like hearing you describe this, I'm like, oh shit. Like, is this going to be the version of Lawbreakers that ends up sticking around too, where like it's not as it's got the like very like confined or constrained dynamics of a tactical competitive shooter, but with the sort of expressiveness of like a more heightened like action game. So that
it feels like that right now, you know, like where the tactical elements are very, very, very important. You know, you do have positioning was already important in the Battle Royale version of Apex, where if another character has a high ground, you're fucked. Like it just doesn't really, you have to close that distance or find cover, because having the high ground in Apex Legends is like, you could really just murder people very easily that way. And here, you know, because everything's so fast paced, I started playing a character. So normally I play Mirage because I like hearing his voice lines and I'm not going to win anyway. and then I started playing, Valkyrie because it's just really fun to fly. And I was really, really enjoying that. But we were getting like our asses kicked. And I started noticing that a lot of players were using Crypto, which has the ability to track other players on the map and, you know, has this like tracking abilities. And I'm not very good at Crypto. I always end up getting killed while I'm looking at the drone. But I do know how to play Bloodhound, who also has a tracking ability and whose ultimate allows them to see enemies like through walls and through cover and all this stuff. Like is very, very useful if you're trying to root out other players who might be hiding from you or are using cover tactically. And once I started using Bloodhound, the other two players on my team, we had a Lifeline. And they also changed Lifeline's revive so that instead of putting you behind a shield where you revive very slowly, Lifeline's new tactical is so useful in the arena because it's just autonomous. She attaches a health drone to you and then she can walk away and you'll just revive. You know, because of how fast things are in these gunfights, you don't have a lot of time to do things like heal or charge your shields. So having a character that can revive you and then get back to shooting right away is really, really useful. And then our third character, well, Ro was just really good at shooter. So our third character was anyone who was using a wingman because he could headshot everybody. And it like worked out for us. And like that started being a composition that was incredibly useful. And it's just like I wouldn't have played that way. We were starting to do things like, because you have limited charges, I would look out for, movement or other player characters. And then as soon as we could find them, we'd try to position so we could have one person come and flank around the side. And then like as soon as we were in range, I would hit the tactical so everyone would be marked. And then usually we could ambush them from there and be able to win that round. The wrinkle on top of this that makes it different from Valorant is that there is also a circle in this game where that gets smaller and smaller, and you will die if you're not in it. So you're forced into confrontations. Like the point is to get you in as small a space as possible and make you have a gunfight. And that's always the thing I'm wanting to do in Apex Legends is have a really satisfying gunfight. And now there's a mode that'll give that to me every time.
But it doesn't have, so it rules out that thing of like Counter-Strike where it's like you're gonna watch two people peek endlessly around a corner. Yeah. I do love that your team composition was like scout, healer, good player.
True.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll do the thing, not the killing people. You do the thing. Also, just keep the good person up and.
Yeah, so much of my job was telling Ro where people were hiding around corners. To be like, oh, Ro, someone's coming behind you. Ro, someone's up top. Ro, maybe get closer to Mikhail and you see like
this is reminds me of like the Hoosiers strategy. A sports movie that's long regarded as great, but like one of the critiques of it is if you really boil it down, the story of this like plucky basketball program is literally just the coach persuades the really good player in town to play for him. And the rest of it's like, damn, this coach is a genius. But you step back from the movie, it's like, no, that kid's just a stone cold killer.
Yeah.
Like, it's like the rest of those guys don't need to do anything. Just
No, I got better at shooting over time also, like, finally in this game. I feel like because I'm always so startled in Apex, like, normal, I've never really learned how to shoot and be calm.
But now you're in that combat zone, so you're like, yeah.
We played for, like, a good 2 hours. Like, it really goes quickly also. Like, even though matches can become very long. Like, that one where we got into two tiebreakers, that was, like, a half hour of shooting gun. But it feels so fast because the actual confrontations, they're over in about 5 minutes. Like, as soon as you get up in each other's grill, it's difficult to, like, disengage from that because that circle is closing around you. But it does now that, like, it really shows me the reason why I've been bad. I've told myself I was bad at shooters for so long. It's because I didn't ever give myself a chance to play something where I would feel prepared. And I've played so much Apex that I really feel familiar with not just, like, the mechanics of it, but just, like, how to make guns and stuff do what I want, even though I don't feel like I get a chance to use those skills in the game itself. And here I feel like I finally found a place where, like, okay, well, my kill death ratio is finally improving. And, like, my damage is, like, a lot better than it normally is in Apex Legends, where I'm just like, and then I die. So it is, I think, honestly, it's the version of the game I most want to play. I do like Battle Royale, but we played some duos together, me and Mikhail, and it just, like, it wasn't as fun as Arenas. Arenas was a lot more fun because you did more.
Did you play Valkyrie?
Yeah, I played some Valkyrie.
How does the flying feel?
It's Destiny-esque, interestingly, in that you are gonna have to get a feel for how it feels to use your how. So it's definitely taking cues from a lot of different other shooters. I guess I'll start there. And that using your launch ability reminded me a lot of how you have a set amount of fuel that can deplete in when you're playing Diva in Overwatch, for instance. But then, like, the way that your character jumps and the way that they float down and how that's sort of maneuverable, but also you kind of have to learn how much your character weighs and how much sort of moving them around will affect the trajectory of their body. That reminded me a lot of learning to jump in Destiny. So when you're flying, when you launch, you can't shoot anything, which I think is, like, part of how they made this mechanic not an instant game winner. And you're also you're very vulnerable if you're up in the air. It's very possible to get shot and then be knocked down and bleed out when you get to the ground. There were a couple of instances in which I flew up as Valkyrie, spotted someone, they shot me, and then I bled out as soon as I landed. But you do have the ability at the, like, top of your arc to hit that tactical, which is very, 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 very useful. It's like a lot of missiles, and they also you can't use your healing or your abilities while you're being hit by them, which sucks. And it's also, you do have a little window on the way back down. You know, there's an animation first. Valkyrie will give a peace sign once she starts floating down, which is very cute. And then there's, like, a beat, and then you can take your gun back out. So you still do have the ability to sort of create high ground with her and use that to take out a player who's on top of a roof, for instance. But she seems to be, in a lot of ways, I see other players using her as a scout because she can fly up and get a vantage point that other players can't see. And in that matchup, when you've got two other characters who give you new tools for traversing through, obstacles, like Horizon, who gives you those jump pads, and Octane, who also gives you a launch pad for his ultimate, like, you end up with just a team that can fly all around the map and is literally unstoppable. It's very scary. Playing against her also, you start hearing the jets that just have a particular sound, and everyone always launches off immediately. So it's just like you start, the game starts, the little, music dies down, and then you hear a and you're like, I'm dead. This sucks.
What kind of map variety is there in the arenas queue right now?
Right now, there's 3 maps that switch every 15 minutes, which I actually really liked that speed because it means you get familiar with all the maps really, really fast. We went from really not knowing where we were going to being able to figure it out pretty fast. And I think there are also like little snippets of the other Battle Royale maps, except with particular certain changes. So in artillery, there are also like, I think there are big guns that you can post up and shoot, like big artillery guns. And then in another map, Phase Runner, there's these big tubes that work like phase teleporters in the same way that Wraith's ability works. So you can use those to just go to different parts of the map really fast. The third one, I don't remember what it's called, and I don't remember what its special thing was, but I think it was nice. They're pretty different. They're not so unfamiliar from the Battle Royale maps that you're going to feel like disoriented in them. In a way, in something that's very different from CSGO and Valorant maps, though, there aren't a lot of hallways. There aren't a lot of passageways. This is pretty open. They don't want you to like get lost or to like sit and camp in a hallway. They want you to go directly to the other team. The goal is not to hide or to set traps for other people. The goal is to shoot someone in the head just right away. It rocks. See, I like Valorant a lot, but that was the thing for me, that the same, like, I'm so nervous now because I've been waiting for so long for just someone to get around this corner, and now they're here, and I'm like, I don't even remember how to play the game because I'm so anxious, and then I shoot a wall and they kill me. That stuff is just not going to happen here. You go in, you gear up, and you're like, we're going to war. This is going to be over fast. And that to me just really fits what I like about first-person shooters. I like getting, having a gun that feels good, having movement that feels very fluid, and then being able to fly around like Spider-Man and shoot someone who doesn't even know that I killed them.
Yeah, that's that does sound like it addresses a lot of the issues that can crop up with not just battle royales, but like a lot of shooters where it's like that. Part of getting good is getting in there and mixing it up, but so many games are structured to like make it take so long to get to that moment, and also require so much like understanding of the game to like even function in that moment, that the fact they've kind of condensed this down to like just go get in there and mess people up sounds really nice. It's something I feel like probably has a really high skill ceiling, but the skill floor, because these are all the things that are in this mode are elements of Apex Legends that already exist in other parts of the game. So there's the getting used to this mode is really, really, really easy. Like, it made me think about like why I stopped playing Valorant, and like part of it was getting into these maps, realizing that I didn't know where I was going or what each pathway was or what my teammates meant when they were saying A, B, and C. Knowing then I would have to take time outside of the game to study a map, and then being like, I'm not going to do that. I'm just not going to do it. It's not even about not wanting to. It's like, I'm not going to. That doesn't fit into my life and how I play games. I don't feel that invested in this experience to want to do that. Whereas, in Apex, because everything's so quickly, you don't need to know it happens so quickly. You don't have to know every single pathway in a map. You don't have to know every single secret. You just need to know enough so that you can get from point A to point B, close the distance between you and the other team, and then start using the other skills you have to fake them out, to use your abilities in a smart way, to be able to mark people. Not just that, but use the wide variety of ways that Apex Legends already gives you to communicate with your teammates non-verbally by pinging people. What really became essential to us was that we were all on comms, which is IMO not essential during the Battle Royale version. But you could tell that teams, what teams were talking to each other and what teams weren't. And like the major difference when we didn't have a dedicated third player was that person would just go and try to, 1v3 everybody, which is just not going to happen. So I do think like for a person, like if you wanted to play Valorant and couldn't get into it for the reasons that are similar to mine, try this out. It's really, really fun. Okay. that is the Apex Legends Arenas mode, and that does sound like a lot of fun, and sounds like a nice little way to get back on board with that game. If you
Rob, I will see you there if you're down. I'm ready. Rob Cado, I'm always ready to play.
All right, so I think we can probably just dip into the question bucket here. We had a lot of Gita on the last show. We had someone posit, what would you prepare for? Let's get your answer to this question.
Okay.
You have to prepare a dinner for the following guests: your mother, a dairy farmer, a vegetarian, a food waste advocate. Was that it? Cado, do you remember what the exact term was?
A food politics person. We can just say that.
Yeah, a food politics person.
I went to Oberlin. I know what that means. My dad doesn't buy bananas.
Yeah.
A hunger activist.
A hunger activist. Yeah.
And a nutritionist.
And a nutritionist. And so you had to prepare a meal that would please that crowd.
Okay, so I'm a lactose intolerant vegan.
Yeah.
So this is already pretty easy for me. I also don't care if my mom's satisfied with my cooking or not. She finds reasons to be upset with me all the time. So she can suck it. I love you, Mom, but chill. Dairy farmer, I feel like I would have to go with a recipe that I've now finally perfected, which is my vegan mac and cheese as a side. Actually, let's think about this in terms of courses. First course, soup and salad. I have a extremely delicious, very creamy potato soup recipe, like served in a sort of cup with a nice little crusty bread baked by myself, with just a little house salad with a little balsamic, some pickled onions, some greens. I think like some what is served on top of this soup is a little dollop of olive caviar, and I think I would put a dollop of that in the salad as well. Then moving on to the main, it would be for a side, asparagus grilled in my cast iron with a nice sear, some of my vegan mac and cheese, which I make with cashew cream sauce, which I think tastes very cheesy. And I would love to talk with a dairy farmer about how you can replicate the flavor of cheese using non-cheese things. And then for the main part of it, I think the way that I would try to please the people at that table with my main. So I'm a lactose intolerant vegan, and I also can't have cauliflower, mushrooms, or chickpeas. So which really makes cooking pretty difficult for me at times.
Okay.
Yeah. Because a lot of the vegan replacements, I have IBS, and those things set off my IBS, and a lot of vegan replacements are made out of those three things. So I've had to get pretty creative in terms of how I can give myself a full meal all the time. And I want to make a dish that is like vegan, like just the way that it's always been cooked. But I like Indian food. I want to make South Indian food, which is the food that my mother grew up teaching me how to cook, which is all vegan or very easily made to be vegan, and is also really easy to make and extremely plentiful. I feel like I could make dal with a side of mac and cheese, but I'm not sure it would be totally congruent, but I'm going to say like rice and dal for the main there. Rice and dal with eggplant and potato. And then for a dessert, I would make a vegan version of kheer, just to give a dessert I actually hate, but my mom does love. Kheer basically is hot milk with noodles in it. Like, I'm sorry, Indian American listeners and Indian listeners, but that is what kheer is. All Indian desserts taste like cardamom and sugar, but I do love that flavor. But it is a dairy-based dessert with like a little vermicelli, some spices, raisins. It's like a little dessert soup. I think that would be the little dessert soup with maybe like a tiny slice of a type of like pound cake or something.
That's a little concession.
Yeah.
Put it over the top.
I think so. That would be the kind of dinner I'd have. This was a very intense question for me. I like food a lot.
No, it is, and it elicited a lot of responses. And yeah, one of the things that a lot of people brought up was like, well, Indian food would check a lot of those boxes.
You could just serve them dosa. Like, you could actually, I would make idli. I'd make idli and sambar for the main alongside the idli are like fermented rice cakes, and they come with a bunch of different sauces. And that would be fun also because then you get to put the sauce on the mac and cheese and the asparagus too, and try them out with all different kinds of flavors. It's one of my favorite foods. It's pretty difficult to find in restaurants in America. I found idli in New York just because there's a lot of Indians here, and like Jackson Heights is like a hop, stone's throw away. But South Indian food, which is all vegetarian and mostly vegan, is just there aren't not as many South Indian chefs as there are North Indian chefs when they eat more meat and they eat more dairy.
We got one interesting answer from Chris Johnston. If I'm serving one meal for everyone to share, I would go with the vegetarian version of panakirti, panhaggerty. It's layers of thinly sliced potatoes, onions, and melted cheese, like an eggless omelet. You can add other ingredients, peppers, mushrooms, spinach. If I was making a 3-course meal, entree, mushroom and Stilton soup. This feels like a very British answer to this. Entree, mushroom and Stilton soup. Main, nut roast with vegetables. All leftovers can be used for bubble and squeak. Does anyone know what bubble and squeak is?
It's one of those British foods that sounds like a Harry Potter spell.
Yeah, bubble and squeak. What on earth? What? Oh, okay. It's just like...
Bubble and squeak is a British dish made from cooked potatoes and cabbage mixed together and fried.
Okay.
Yeah, this is like a British poverty meal that has now just become a staple.
Yes, this feels like a like every cuisine has a version of this. The frittata adjacent,
yep.
You got some
quiche. Stuff you gotta use, fry them up. There you go.
Yeah. And then dessert, fruit with cheese board and port. I feel like you bust out that port, that'll, then it really looks like you were trying, I think. If you just bring out, I'll just bring out the port, and everyone's gonna be like, ooh, this is a dinner party now. I love it.
Yeah.
But thank you for introducing me to the term bubble and squeak. Let's see. DJ with an important question. Hey gang, love the festival emails. Here's an easy one for you. Guacamole on tacos, yes or no? I personally always put guac on my tacos, but I could imagine someone from guac is solely a dip and would be profane as a topping. Bonus question, what is your ideal taco construction? So, I think for me, like straight away, I do not think this is an equivalent to ketchup on hot dogs, right? Like, the taco is just a canvas, and it can have guac on it, or you can dip it in the guac, but like there's no I don't get with any of this like no sour cream in your taco or burrito. Like sometimes sour cream on that stuff is real nice.
Yours we're going to expand like the palette of your like what your kids eat. You have things that are like, hey, we just need them to eat, like the nights wrap it up, like whatever, make the mac and cheese with peas and move on with their lives. But especially now that my oldest Jessica is back at school, where when she is at school, she will eat whatever they give her because she's surrounded by kids and there's like a societal pressure to do that. So she's nudged in the direction of trying like, she ate like, like pork one time. And I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like that kid, like if there's like char marks on the chicken, she's like, that's spicy. And I'm like, you don't know what's, I know what you're saying. And so, we've been trying to take advantage of the fact, like, what is she eating at school, and then try and make it at home, and like take advantage of like of that stuff. She'll tell us with chicken. She's like, I only eat that at school. I like the chicken at school. I'm like, okay.
Wow.
All right. Okay. So anyway, last night we had tacos, and my wife and I, what we wanted her to eat was, trying to eat what we're eating, but really like the taco experience is like put whatever you want on it, like whatever you want to put in that tortilla, go have fun. And so like what she made was she looked at like the flavored chicken that my wife had made, and I looked at it and I was like, there's not a chance in hell she's gonna touch this. Well, she should try it. And I'm like, it's very red looking. I know it's delicious. You've made that before. I love it. She's gonna look at that and run away. And so we tried, and she was not interested. But she ended up. She's like, well, I'm allowed to put whatever I want on my taco. I'm like, yes. So she grabbed a handful of these snap peas that she also loves to eat, throws that on there. Big handful of cheese, throws that on there. And then my wife doesn't like sour cream, so we use Greek yogurt, common substitute, and lobs that, just wipes it all over.
Hell yes.
All over the taco, all over the tortilla. Just takes the spoon out and is just like a big smooth layer of Greek yogurt.
After my own heart.
4 or 5 snap peas and like a bunch of like a cheddar cheese or whatever, like thrown on there. Wrapped it up and ate that gooey mess. And you know, the takeaway was like, look, hey, like she made the made a taco and she ate it. What is important is that she went through the process. Picking what she liked, eting it, and then getting out the other side.
She's developing a sense of self, and she's developing her taste. Please tell me what funny thing she did next.
No, it was just like gross when she got to the center of it because, you know, like as she's eating into like the gooey middle of this taco, it's just snap peas with Greek yogurt and cheese all mushed together. Could you please take another bite? And she's like, oh, I'd love to. And just and just like you,
it's like vegetarian Resident Evil.
Yeah. You'd hear the crispness of those snap peas and the mushiness of that yogurt that over the course of like the 45 minutes that she slowly ate it, you know, expanding and like moisturizing the tortilla and the other parts. It was a delight. But yeah, the takeaway was she didn't touch that fucking chicken, but she made a taco and she's like, I liked eating a taco. And I was like, hey, whatever makes you happy.
Good. Change.org petition to replace the fatphobic character in the new Resident Evil game with just a large toddler.
Yeah, that would work. Honestly, would have been better. Would have fit like Elizabeth, their 1-year-old, like she's a big old girl.
Yeah.
Like she, you know, like it's like babies do. They got like thunder thighs, like really, and it's cute, adorable. Like yes, it should have just been a big talking baby,
just a big baby,
and then you could have made them big, and it would have fit the character.
Exactly, like an above average sized baby is already startling in real life. Like imagine like a human adult sized baby in a horror game.
Yeah, and then you know when the baby's like feed me, and it's like
that
you know what?
Makes sense. It's not fat
Ethan Winters is gonna go murder that chicken and feed it to this giant baby because I need to. My new Dark Lord is this baby that needs to eat.
I feel like anytime you have a game that needs like a video game logic moment, you just have a character who's a big baby that's making random demands. Like that would work.
I'm into it.
Hell yeah!
But also, I love guac. So put the guac on the taco. Like any excuse to get guac on a thing, like I'm here for it. That's not the dip is great, but at least the problem with the dip version of guac is that I will just keep eating it.
Yes,
like it'll ruin an upcoming meal for me. Whereas if I'm putting the guac on a taco, I'm a little more controlled with my use of it. Like it's like I'm spraying guac on something like I'm putting like ketchup on something. Like it's just like I can't. I love it too much, and so at least the taco is like I can only fit so much in there, or you put too much in there, and then it oozes out during the during the eating process.
And then you just get another chip. It's fine. You could make yourself some dip. Yeah. Chicago has like uncommonly good Mexican food too. I feel like people like that's a well kept secret of Chicago. It's like everywhere from the big good restaurants like Big Star to like remember a little place that had pupusas back where we used to live. That place rocked. It was just like a hole in the wall.
Oh my god! Yes, that place fucking ruled.
Yeah,
they were so. It was like $1.50.
Yeah. It was like a little hole in the wall, family run place, and they just had really good pupusas and like
fucking sick.
Unlike in New York, where you sometimes get a bad guac that like doesn't have enough lime juice or isn't salty enough, or they add an unnecessary ingredient.
Is it just
like
me,
peas.
or is there just a general produce problem in New York sometimes?
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah. Like, it just feels like of places I've been, like New York sometimes seems the dodgiest when it comes to like, oh, let's check out the produce section. And a lot of times it's like, oh, this is way more limited than I would have expected.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've gotten to grocery stores sometimes in New York. And like there's also like different tiers of grocery stores in New York. This is like there's I saw a good meme once that was like what the grocery store you shop at says about in New York says about you. And it's like if you're the kind of person that only goes to Stop and Shop then you just have grown up in the tri-state area and don't want to change. And if you only grocery store you go to is like Whole Foods, is like you're a coward. But like there's like a lot of like little tiny grocery stores like I've never seen outside of New York, like Food Bazaar, that just like has all the stuff you need, but like has uncommonly bad produce that's always like shitty and rotting.
But even the Whole Foods, like it's kind of been irrespective of where I've gone in New York, where it's like, oh, this looks like a giant like flagship Whole Foods location. Oh, it's pretty picked over and everything looks like it's a little past its prime. It's just a kind of a weird feature of...
I don't know about you, Cado, but like I know that when I need to like grab a fresh onion or some garlic, I don't really go to the grocery store. I go to the corner store because they have like, usually they have all those real staples I need. And that means that I bet there's just less turnover at grocery stores because a lot of people go to their bodegas for the staples.
Yeah, I think, and yeah, you're right about the whole tier thing. It really depends. But even then, it absolutely depends on where you are in the city too. Like,
yes,
a Whole Foods in the middle of Brooklyn is not the same as the Whole Foods in Union Square.
That's very true. The Whole Foods in Union Square is a free-for-all. It's very scary.
It is. But it also, I think, has better stuff, which is why it also ends up being like a hub. Like even the fucking the Whole Foods in Union Square versus the Whole Foods in the Bowery, or like near the Bowery, like those are two totally different stores. Like you wouldn't guess it was a chain at all just by the selection of stuff, even though they're like, you know, a stone's throw away essentially as far as, you know, city goes.
Yeah, those were the two different Whole Foods that were by the Kotaku office to both different locations.
Yeah.
So taco composition, I'll just get into this. When I ate meat, essentially all I really wanted was a little chopped red onion, a little grilled chicken, and some lime juice, and some pico de gallo. Like, you don't actually need more than that. But I do feel like different tacos call for different toppings. Like, you're not going to put like the same toppings on a fish taco as you do on a chicken taco or a barbacoa. Now that I don't eat meat, the avocado itself has become the main, like, central topping in my taco, right? Because that is, like, a slice of avocado has the same amount of protein and is, like, the same, like, shape and size as a dollop of meat a lot of the time. So unless I'm doing, like, a seitan taco or something like that, I can't put guac on it because I have a different kind of avocado on my taco.
Already.
Yeah. So it also like replaces sour cream in some tacos for me. So in a situation where I would put sour cream, I usually just put guac. Go ahead, Cado.
I have like two different modes of taco wants, and it's basically dependent on the tortilla. Corn tortilla, you just want meat on that. A good meat, and maybe like that meat has a few like things cooked with it or in it, you know, like you know, carnitas, like there's maybe like some onion or something in there, or you know, but it's like that's it. That's all that's on that thing. It's just the tortilla and whatever your filling is, and it's one filling. Or my degenerate flour tortillas, which is usually what I make at home.
Wow.
Yeah, which is essentially just a fake. Like I set out basically everything that they have at a Chipotle and just like scoop a like spoonful into, including guac, of course, into that. And like that's, but it definitely depends on like the mood and like the receptacle that I have. I like never want to do that sort of like putting rice and beans and a bit of meat and like guac on a corn tortilla, because first of all, it's gonna break apart. Like it cannot, it's not built for that much stuff on it, and it just like it's the wrong flavor profile. Like flour tortilla already has that sort of like just like bready saltiness that is like gonna go well with rice and beans, and then I also want like the rest of the stuff on top anyways. So it's like, those are two different types of tacos. My like, this is more legit sort of taco, like very simple, like you're just throwing whatever single type of filling you're throwing onto it, and the like no one actually eats tacos like this. I'm gonna put everything in it, and it's gonna basically be a mini Chipotle burrito.
Yeah. I feel like there's a difference between like legit Mexican food tacos that are like very authentic, which are delicious in their own right and like really incredible, especially when you get one you can tell they make the tortillas in-house.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
They just like taste like fresh corn. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's
and
delicious.
then like the fast food taco, which is its own thing, and also delicious.
So
I know Cado has talked about his obscene Taco Bell order in the past, but like I also feel like I grew up
that's it.
with
That's even
flavor.
like a third tier of like Taco Bell doesn't even the word taco in the phrase Taco Bell does not register as taco to me.
It's like a different etymology, you know.
Yeah, vestigial taco.
Exactly. I'm not getting tacos from Taco Bell. I'm getting a fucking Crunch Wrap Supreme.
That's right.
The thing I would say though is that I think there is a tendency to over-identify the fresh corn tortilla as like authentic Mexican versus because like growing up, like the thing about flour tortillas is they're real easy to make at home.
Right.
And like you can have an entire like family assembly line of just gunning out fresh flour tortillas. This is what my grandmother did. Of like all the kids would be there, like different stage of the production. When they were adults, it was cute. When they were kids, I gather it was more of a pain in the ass. But the flour tortilla, especially like homemade ones, like I think part of it is a fresh homemade flour tortilla is so delicious that it just becomes kind of a different thing. But also, it bears up better to being overloaded.
Yes, 100%.
I think. It's just it is like a tiny little mini burrito, but also I think just the difference there being, I would say that I think the tortilla itself is allowed to, if it's good, play a bit more of a starring role in that version. And like when I think about that, that's where like if you're trying to like save on food costs as well, like you load that baby down with beans. With vegetables, and you just eat it, and it's great. The thing that, for the corn tortilla, the tricky thing is like if it's super fresh too, they fry up so beautifully.
Yes,
that like they almost need nothing. Where it's like, okay, like I'm gonna put like one little ingredient or in there, two little like contrasting flavors.
Yeah,
like you could put just like fajita style grilled peppers and onions.
Yeah,
and a beautiful corn tortilla, and that's a taco.
Yeah. And the danger is I can also eat 1 million of those.
Right.
Yes.
Like and eat them fast. And so like midway through I was like, oh yeah, it's having a great taco night. And like 20 minutes later I'm like, I could have stopped like 4 tacos ago.
10 tacos ago.
Mistakes may have been made.
Hey, you guys, no, you keep enjoying your dinner. I'm just gonna walk around the apartment a little bit.
Y'all got any
time to take a leisurely turn around the garden.
Yeah.
We should all just go back to the time where Rob could have a Victorian manor where he could take a leisurely turn around the garden after he's eaten too many tacos. I just feel like this is what Rob deserves.
Maybe sometime. But tacos, they're beautiful. And yes, I think Chicago does get unfairly overlooked. Like the best Mexican food I've ever had was the tiny place next to the supermarket where I worked, Rancho Grande in I think it was Hammond, but it was by the old Ultra Foods, and it was again tiny little place, but like the best burritos I've had in my life.
Man.
I don't know how they did it. They always had the steak perfectly charred, and the flavor came through.
That's so hard, especially when you're making like steak at scale.
Right,
it's so difficult to get the consistency on the char.
It was incredible. Like they did beautiful lengua. I would have taken that steak any day of the week, and to an extent, like I've never found a place that has done like steak burritos quite as well, just because they're so consistent on the steak itself. But yeah,
nice.
I think unfairly overshadowed by Californians, I think.
Yeah, my parents met and got married in Santa Barbara, and they have this experience now. Now they live in fucking New England, so the Mexican food situation for them is dire. And like every time we've tried to do, they like don't want to try Mexican restaurants in New England. They when I was a child,
they're a bummer.
Yeah, they are. They're depressing. Like one, the guac never has lime in it. Why are you not putting the limes in there? I don't know. I don't know why you're not doing that. It needs that acid.
That's not guac. That's just mashed avocados.
That's just mashed avocado. It's upsetting. It's really upsetting.
And the thing is, like, people knock, like, Chipotle's whatever. In Boston, people really like Anna's, and Anna's is fine, but it's not good Mexican. Like, I would not like. It's fine.
The way that people go absolutely bonkers for Chipotle in the tri-state area is really wild. If you've ever had real Mexican food before, because
okay, but
yeah,
when you move to an area where your options are limited, it's like when I moved to San Francisco. It was like, great. Pizza sucks now.
Yeah. That's true.
And it's not that I didn't find pizza I liked. There were actually like some places that did like decent. It wasn't Chicago style deep dish, but like they did their own spin on it. Like we actually found places that we liked. And actually that actually was the arc of like being out in the burbs was like, right, I guess we're Chipotle people now, which is fine.
It's fine.
Like, it's you know, it's like Taco Bell, like right, like it's fine.
It's actually
like,
it's definitely a step above
its own thing.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. But like, I consider it its own category.
Yes.
Like, when I'm getting Chipotle, I'm like, it's like, I feel like I'm getting Mexican food. It's like, no, like I'm getting Chipotle.
Yeah.
Like, and it's fine. It's like it's like it uses some of the same ingredients, but the taste profile is completely different.
Yeah.
That said, it turns out like the area we've moved into like has a ton of like popping up like Mexican places. So we've actually found like, well, this is the place that's like really good for tacos. This is the place that like is really good for burritos. It's not run by a bunch of like teenagers in high school.
Yeah. Some sad people who are all upset that you're interrupting them flirting with each other.
Well, that's actually like, COVID bad. Yeah. Walking into Chipotle and just picking up the thing I ordered on the app and not interacting with any of the people that work at the Chipotle. Good.
Yeah.
And probably
we'll
for them
continue
too,
that experience future.
I actually would as long as I continue to employ the same amount of people and do not decrease their pay. I would absolutely love to have the ability to not bother the people that always seem very tired and exasperated at the fast food restaurants that I go to. I want to just order an Impossible Whopper on my phone, put a $2 in the tip jar, grab it, and walk away. Like, that's all I want to do. Like, thank you very, very much. Goodbye.
I will say, so since moving out of Boston, the thing that's around here is that, so there's a lot more like Dominican and Salvadoran food around here. But I think one reason that you are more likely to get bad Mexican food in New England is partly because Mexican food is like a brand, and people are like, I want Mexican food. People, for a variety of reasons, don't know Dominican like cuisine as well. And so what you'll end up with, I think, is a lot of places that are basically like people from the Dominican Republic being like, fuck it, I guess we'll do Mexican food. We can execute that. And they can, but it's not as good as the stuff they probably make. Like I feel like there's a lot of like, well, fuck it, like we just gotta feed these people. Like their definition of good is Chipotle, so we'll make something Chipotle adjacent, and then there'll be a section on the menu where it's the food we actually want to make.
Yeah. It's sort of like the person who tutored me in math in high school was one of the IT students at Wesleyan that worked for my dad. She was really nice. Ambika, if you're listening, you're lovely. You're definitely not listening, but if you are, you were a great math tutor. You made things make sense to me. Ambika is Indian, but she spent like a long time living in Thailand and speaks Thai. And so, when we would order food while I was doing like math problems, struggling without actually it was pre-calc that was really hurting. It was very difficult for me. We'd just grab the phone and speak rapidly in Thai, and then we'd end up with food that was the most delicious food I'd ever had in my life, but I could not identify. And it's just like, okay, well, these people, they're making their own food, and I don't know what it is, but it tastes really good, and I'm really glad that Ambika has the ability to actually to get this stuff. I mean, that happens too whenever me and my mom goes to there's a very small restaurant that's like a hole-in-the-wall dosa place where my mom lives. Like, there's a very small community of Indian Americans right next to a little Indian sort of goods store. And she can go there and she'll ask like, oh, my family's from Hyderabad. Where are you guys from? And then the chef will they'll share, some experiences. And then the food will come back and it'll be like extra spicy and closer to how she remembers making it at home. And like the doses will be very thin and lacy. And it's just like, well, yeah, you know, minorities get to have those kinds of minority experiences. But what is interesting, though, is like watching some of the restaurants from my hometown that were once like mediocre Chinese places turn into above average Vietnamese places as pho has become like a trendy food. You know, it does show you a lot about how in our society, whiteness and the culture of whiteness is centered so much that all minorities have to bend their experience of their own marginalization in order to meet the expectations of white people. I've turned this a very fun conversation about food essentially into an analysis of the text, can the subaltern speak? They can't.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that is the nature of food in America. And I think it goes even to this point of like, sometimes the fetishization of authentic, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where it's like, where do folks like you hang out where the white people don't bother you? I must go there and discover this. Like the whole thing becomes very acquisitive. I mean,
so this is something that is video game related. So I'll wait until Cado brings his thing up and I'll change the topic.
All I was going to say is that like most of the time I can tell if it's authentic or not just by who's cooking. Mm-hmm. And I've there was rest in peace, Taqueria de los Muertos, amazing Mexican place that was, if anyone ever went there that like was a foodie or something, they'd be like, wow, this is so fake. And it's because they were using recipes and stuff that I recognize as like, oh, this is an immigrant who's like making replacements, and like they just kind of follow that through onto this restaurant, and it still tastes really good, but it's not quote unquote authentic. But it's like, I know this is, I can, as being a first generation immigrant, I can tell, no, this shit is authentic. This is, you know, an immigrant cooking these things, and it tastes good, and it's real Mexican, even if it's not what people have deemed is quote unquote real Mexican, right?
Yeah, reminded me a lot about Priya, who's now at New York Times Cooking, who used to be at Bon Appetit. She has this recipe on the Bon Appetit site, YouTube channel, that was for like potato and pepper sabzi. And she explained in the video, like sabzi just means fried up shit. So these are just like, you can use any vegetables for these. Like this is like a common meal that my Indian mom would make when we moved to America, because these were vegetables she recognizes and spices she recognizes, and she could combine them. It's not really a traditional meal, but it is something that I ate as an Indian American growing up.
Right.
So we got a food ritual one. This one comes from Tressa. Hey, we may be way past the discussion of food rituals. Tressa, have you listened to the show? No. This is how we live now. I would like to contribute my own. Go for it. I too am a circle sandwich eater because I generally like the soft middle bread more than the crust, but don't dislike the crust enough to cut it off altogether. Okay. The new food ritual I have to contribute is that if I am eating a plain croissant, I always unravel it. Which I mean, I take that little triangle in the middle and pull it back. I do the reverse of what the baker did to form it. I do this because then I get to enjoy the beautiful buttery core of the croissant at the end. Truly a little treat, a delicacy, if you will. Obviously, I don't do this with other pastries or pain au chocolat because that would just be a mess. Love the show, and all the weird intricacies of human eating habits are being revealed through the question bucket. How do you not unravel? I'm sorry, if there's something that is rolled up, I must unravel it. Like that's how I'm going to eat it. Like I look at, like, sometimes I see people like do a slice of like challah, and I'm like, absolute, like, no, how can you not just want to unwind the entire braid?
Yeah. David and I eat challah by ripping parts off of it.
Yep.
We also eat it with chili, which gives you like, you get more surface area for dipping when you do it that way.
Any sort of coiled bun situation is, just totally gonna unspiral that shit. Cinnamon bun,
because that's the
whatever.
Eventuality of all spiraled foods.
Like, I don't know, it almost like feels wrong to bite, just like pick it up and bite into it. Like, I can't, no, that's not.
It feels like biting into the middle of a Kit Kat, you know, instead of snapping it apart.
I'm not following for this reason.
Yeah.
I'm not following the instructions the food are giving me.
Yeah. I used to do kind of the opposite because we would have croissants with breakfast a lot, and it would be like eggs with croissant, and so I would basically take one of the like sides that kind of formed like a little cornucopia shape almost, and then rip out the innards, eat that first, and then scoop eggs into it and like have like a little mini breakfast sandwich as a kid. My parents thought I was the weirdest fucking kid because everyone else just ate their things separately in my family. But I was like, no, I want. Little did I know, we were in Florida at the time. Breakfast sandwiches aren't a fucking thing, really. So I was just, foretelling my future breakfast wants.
Oh man, I do think the perfect breakfast though is like the French petit déj with just espresso, tiny little shot glass of orange juice, croissant, jam, and butter. You don't need more than that, really. That gets you going until you get to your lunch, which is the real meal.
Well, Christina and I have been. There was a new French place that opened up, and we just bought like a baguette, a couple of croissants, and a pain au chocolat, and that was breakfast.
That sounds
just
so
a bunch
good.
of fucking bread, different types of bread. It's delicious and good.
They're all food groups, right?
Yeah.
You got the baguette at the bottom of the triangle, and then the pastries get smaller as you go up.
As you go up, exactly.
Got little macarons at the top.
Right, exactly.
Okay, so last question. This is kind of a long email, but I think it has lessons for all of us for life.
Oh boy.
This one comes from Fenrir. Fenrir writes, "Hey crew, y'all were just talking about the joyful period of reprieve from a job that gives you the space to breathe and experience another perspective. I've not had so much the luck to land myself in a situation that's in any measure sustaining me, never mind extending much support to my community, but the first time I really took in, I could just go, this isn't worth what I'm going through, and even if the next thing doesn't pay well enough or is enough hours, at least it'll be new and I can find something else. I took it in. I internalized it. I embodied it through the course of 5 jobs. I left gleefully, though after hanging on long enough to burn out each time. For the most part of my working years, I've been a baker. See email I forgot to label, question bucket, Rob not describing gluten when bread making. I fell into it, loved making something that people enjoyed, that fed them, that served a base purpose. But here's the thing, bakeries suck. Yeah, 4 a.m. shifts aren't great, especially if you have past issues with sleep deprivation, and it can be pretty physically exhausting. But regardless, all bakeries suck eventually, even the great ones. It's the cycle. Every bakery has systems that erode over time until you show up for a shift and barely know what you're doing because communication is so garbled or non-existent that you look in the proofer, try not to cry that there's only half the bread you're supposed to bake that day, and hope there's a reason for it no one told you about. Great bakeries catch the cycle, rebuild their systems, and truck along until the next round. Good bakeries kind of patch things up and spring holes sooner. Terrible bakeries just get worse. Out of all the places I quit, both joyously and at times detailing their failures that at least once appeared to make an owner reconsider his whole life philosophy, my personal favorite is the place that wanted us to do 8 hours of work in 6 hours. My final shift, I had slept in and used my skateboard to get to a car share quick to get to work relatively on time. After clocking 8 hours, because fuck them, pay me, and it's not like you can force bread to proof faster, that's not how bread works, I literally ollied out the back door. Tried to keep this short. What's your favorite, at least I got to X from leaving a job? What little victory in the final moments, hours, shifts of a job do you hold dear as the reminder, actually you could leave, there are better places, it's fun to leave. What's your ollie out? Granted, once you're a baker, it's pretty easy to pick up another job, provided you live someplace with more than one bakery. But I think the thing I loved about this is that to an extent, that bakery description, that is every team-oriented job I've ever seen. Like, everything is a fight against entropy. And that problem, it's so interesting to me because you think a bakery, they have no choice but to solve it. But apparently they don't. They still have that entropic cycle of like, oh, fuck, we don't have bread for today. And that's kind of fascinating and reassuring to me because I'm like, nah, it probably just happens in bullshit white-collar jobs the most.
Yeah,
like,
every day when I wake up Monday morning and I'm like, what is a blog? That happens to everybody.
So I find that whole part fascinating of just like, even with the daily pressure of, look, like the bread's got to be made, you still have this routine problem of bakeries cannot keep everyone on the same page, despite having a staff of pros. So if people have ideas about how to solve that, I'm always, this stuff interests me so much, because like I assume some places do figure this out. Like I assume if you're a elite bakery or restaurant, surely it's at least a little figured out.
Well, looking at sort of stories in the restaurant industry over the past year, it seems like the solution to this problem is to be a really abusive boss. So
that is true.
Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of people have eluded this issue of constantly having to produce things by rewarding the worst possible personality types and then becoming the worst possible manager.
Terrible little Marco Pierre Whites.
My favorite way I've ollie out of a job was posting a blog in which I told Jim Spanfeller to go fuck himself moments before my Slack access was revoked on my last day of Kotaku. That was pretty good.
Flipped out of there.
Yeah, hell yeah.
So to that, what are people's? So all right, that's Gita.
Mm-hmm.
That's their favorite. Fuck this place, I'm out. Who else has had nice "fuck this place, I'm out" type moments?
I had the opposite, where I was told, "Fuck you, get out."
That sucks.
I feel like I don't know if I've told this story on the podcast before, but I might have. But I'll repeat it here, at least for the purposes of this discussion. When I left EGM, the new EGM, from like, I guess like a decade ago now. That's before I went to go work at Giant Bomb. And Giant Bomb wanted to hire me, but they were waiting for a big advertising deal to get finalized so that they actually had the money to pay my salary. So, that would be important in the job part of it. And that took a while. Like, I was kind of told, like, yeah, we're really interested in bringing you on. It's taking a little while to figure that out. And then it had sort of been figured out. And I was kind of just like basically just like working at EGM, cashing a paycheck, but not doing a whole lot while I waited for this situation to get taken care of. And then it did get taken care of. And I was like a month out from starting at Giant Bomb when they were still Whiskey Media. And so I sent an email to the terrible boss, the owner, whatever, fuck Steve Harris, at EGM, was just like, hey, like, so I've accepted another offer out here in San Francisco. Like, I'm putting in my 2 weeks, just letting you know. And his response, but to paraphrase, not even to paraphrase, it was like a sentence long, was just like, nah, that's good. See ya. And just that was it. The email was me, like, I immediately like lost email access, like no longer being paid. And I like wrote Giant Bomb an email. I was like, any chance I could start 2 weeks early because I don't have a job anymore? And they're like, no, like we literally don't have them. We don't have the money to pay you.
Wow.
We cannot pay you until like that specific date. I was like, all right. Well, I guess I don't have a job, so that's cool. It was like, tried to do the 2 week notice thing and like realized like maybe that is just something people should stop doing. I understand why it occurs. I'll probably keep doing it, but like that was a harsh lesson in actually they don't owe you fucking anything.
Yeah.
And they could just tell you, wow, great, that's your notice. Goodbye. And that's
Can
how.
they?
At will employment.
Illegal.
At will employment. Yeah.
I think when you've made your intention to leave, you've made your intention to leave. I don't know the legalities of that, like, but I wasn't like in a position to be like, well, I'm gonna go get a lawyer and like figure out the next, what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Employers
it was just sort of like, all right,
yeah, they bet on that. They bet on you just not having the ability to have a lawyer and like contest it. And you just be like, well, okay.
And
Can't
I
do
had the job lined
Yeah.
up, so it was just like, even though money was like extremely tight between my wife and I, was like, well, I guess we'll just.
Because also, like, yeah, when
make
you
it
start a
work.
new job, you start a new pay period. So you're like, I'm not going to see anything from this work for like a month. That rocks.
Right, yeah, and then
Yeah.
insurance gets weird, yada
Yeah,
yada.
yeah.
That I got ollied in my own jaw, and that's just like I haven't had this. I've like most of my job transitions have been pretty smooth, and then the one time where I could have done a fuck you, instead the fuck you went to me. I don't know if Cado, you got one?
Kind of. I worked for a while I was in Baltimore at a sign shop, which was all right for the most part, until after being there for a couple years, I opened my big mouth about how I can do certain things because we were having trouble getting like a new website up and running. I was like, oh yeah, I've dabbled. A mistake. And like then as a fool, like I couldn't back out of it at that point, but then it became a like, well, now you have to do both you still have to do your sign job, you still have to do your graphic design job, but also, hey, you're our tech support now. We're gonna be, messaging you off hours and shit. And I was like, this is not what I signed up for. But the issue that they hadn't considered was me ever leaving and having all the passwords to the back end of that CMS, and just kind of piecing out when I pieced out and not leaving notes. They're just like, yeah, thanks, bye. Good luck with that website. You'll have to pay someone to actually, make you it wasn't very good either. I wasn't that good. I just knew the technical aspects to make a website appear on the internet. But I definitely left that without any like information on how any of that runs, and they were just like, how I sometimes check in on the website. It's like, oh wow, that's still exactly how I left it. So they're still for some reason paying for the domain, but no information has changed on that website in 6 years now.
It's very useful for them.
I'm sure.
Yeah, jobs really do take advantage of people who are nice.
And this is the thing. People want to do good jobs.
Yes.
Like most people want to express some ideal of like excellence or like care for anything they do. Like this is also true of a lot of people in service jobs. Like sometimes if you're in a place you like, you want to provide good customer service. Like for all the jokes that like eventually a bunch of us in those roles like burn out and get just fucking furious. There's also a lot of that also comes from a place where you start to realize you'll never be rewarded for being good at any of this.
Right.
Like if you make someone's day, no one's going to take care of you for that. No one's going to notice. And nobody will have your back when some shithead like tries to ruin your day.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, like that whole notion of like, I've been living on all these stories the last week of all these employers just like wailing and rending garments over like, where are the workers? We can't get anyone. There's a worker shortage. And it's like, no, you're just not where the supply curve is.
That one article, and I think The Hill, about one of those restaurants that couldn't find any workers to work, were $7.15 an hour, and they raised their pay to $15, and they got hundreds of workers, like more applications than they could sort through.
A market.
Yeah,
but these fuckers are so used to like having work requirements for any sort of welfare that it's like, oh, well, we're used to having a supply of workers who are forced to come, like, be our wage slaves so that they can get their fucking benefits.
Fucking small business tyrants. Yeah. It's so noticeable in service jobs. I remember one of the first times I cried behind the counter as a cashier at the restaurant in the basement of the Art Institute of Chicago was when a woman wearing a Chanel skirt accused me of deliberately sabotaging her day for no reason. Like I had complimented her skirt and she was like, yeah, it's Chanel. Like I wouldn't know what Chanel was because I was a cashier. Like we were, like the Art Institute of Chicago is about 2 miles away from the Mag Mile where there is a Chanel store. So I don't know why you would make that assumption. But I told her that she could not take the food that she had bought in the cafe out to the restaurant outside. And she was like, you're trying to ruin my day on purpose. And I was like, I have no idea why you were like this. That was not worth getting paid the meager amount of money that I was paid for that day. And then I would try, because I'm a nice person, to help people out and go the extra mile for them, hoping that it would like go towards my job performance. But the only thing that happens when you go the extra mile is that people give you more duties with absolutely no pay raises.
Yep.
That is something that definitely happens in office environments also. Like, you learn very quickly in any kind of office environment. You just don't tell people what skills you have. Because if you have skills that someone might need, you're just going to end up doing that work with absolutely no actual, like, no pay or, like, no change in job title or anything like that.
This is my relationship with Rob. Currently.
Oh, yeah, wow. You better give Patrick a raise. Hashtag give Patrick a raise.
No, I just don't want to tell Rob. I just don't tell Rob my skills. I'm hiding all the things I'm good at from him.
Oh yeah.
This is why I'm increasingly like doing things on my own where I'm like, all right, I guess it's time to learn what this part of Adobe does.
Sometime soon, you're just gonna log on to work and you're gonna be like, "Where's Patrick?" And we're gonna be like, "Well, he went back to his home planet," and you're gonna, you're not gonna know what it means.
This did trigger one story I remembered from. It didn't happen to me, but when I was the first jobs I was getting when I was younger, me and my like group of friends who were very close, we'd all just go work at the same place. It's like, all right, we're all gonna work at the Jewel, and so we'd all just apply there and take various positions, like various cashiers, various stock people, various like we would just take over the place. So whenever you went, it was like you were hanging out with your friends. And so we did it at this one grocery store, and we also did it at the AMC, the movie theater. And I was working concessions, and my friend was an usher. We were all spread in different locations, but he was done working for the summer, didn't want to do the last like couple weeks of the job, and my family had rented a place in Wisconsin for like 3 weeks, and he was going to come up for one of those weeks. And so rather than telling the job that he was quitting, he just like went up to the vacation board, like the days he wanted to request off, and just wrote in big letters, "Gone fishing," and then like wrote his name at the bottom of it and just left and just was done for the day. And then like at some point while he was up visiting my family, he got a call from his parents that were like, "So the AMC called, like, you didn't show up for your shift." And he was like, I quit. I wrote "gone fishing." And then his parents called them and they had to inform them, no, the "gone fishing" was notice. He guess he's not working there anymore. So that was a very good power move.
Yes, absolutely.
First job I had, like a lot of folks, was at McDonald's. And I left that job because like with a lot of these places, it was the little kingdom of the assistant manager to set schedules.
Mm-hmm.
And a friend was like, "Hey, want to go on vacation with me this summer? We're going to take like a week. We're going to go to, I think that year we were heading to the Air Force Museum in Dayton. Real cool place. If you're Rob Zachney, I suppose. Going to Dayton.
I wasn't going to say anything, but like the whole, when you said that, I almost snorted.
Point is, like I was like, there's a little like chart where you like sort of black out dates where you don't, and I was like, I blacked them out. And it had been made clear, like on intake, that like, well, they're not obliged to honor that. But like I had been pretty clear. And so, like I am literally on my way on this vacation, like it's the first day, and I get the call from the assistant manager, like, "Hey, where are you? You were scheduled today." And I was like, "Well, I shouldn't have been, because I've had this.
I used the marker."
Yeah, and he was like, "Yeah, well, you didn't confirm that with me. So like, what am I supposed to do here?" And I was like, "I suppose you have to find some. I'm in Ohio, man. Like you're in Hammond. Like this isn't gonna. I can't just come in. I'm 90 minutes away and I'm not coming back." And so he was like, "All right, we'll just make sure you return your shirt when you come back." And I was like, "Nah." I was like, "Sure, I will," but like, no, I'm not getting your McDonald's shirt back. I'm never seeing you again. Mail me that check.
Yeah.
But I think so I had a bittersweet experience, like right before I came to Waypoint. I had basically given up on freelancing to an extent. Like I got a real good offer from Red Bull to go do some stuff there. And it was from day one a disaster. It was like clearly they had just expanded a lot. They'd hired a lot of middle management. I was like on the lower end of like a 3-tier middle management structure that was powerless. Like literally, I was the lowest man on the ladder for a section of management strata that had no capacity to do anything. So like literally, like within a week, I was like, I don't understand what we're supposed to be doing because everything is bureaucratic as hell. There's a lot of confusion about who even has the power to authorize what. And there were a lot of meetings where it was like, no, Rob, like you don't understand. Your job, you need to have like the 10,000 foot view of things. I was like, okay, sure. Now your boss, he's going to have like the 30,000 foot view. And, you know, then his boss, like he's like got like almost a satellite view. I'm like, I don't know what that means for the day, like for the day to day, like what is the material difference between 10,000 feet, 30,000 feet and like geosynchronous orbital view of our work? Like, so do you want me to post this blog or not? It was that kind of thing. It was just, it was not going well. And so there were all these issues at Red Bull. It was ultimately like a fine place. There were a lot of good people there. I liked a lot of the people I worked with, but it was just like one of those things where the business plan for what we were all being hired for hadn't really been fully fleshed out, and it never would be, right? They staffed up really before they had a clear roadmap. And so you ended up with a lot of these platitudes. But the bittersweet thing was, for months I had wanted to like burn that motherfucker down on the way out the door, right? I had wanted to be like do the complete like, you know, fuck you type thing. But then right before, I didn't know it was ending because there was a reorg and I was put under this manager who I can only describe as Surfer Matthew McConaughey. For all I knew that dude is a surfer, so that might not be saying anything, but like had strong like Gulf Coast or like San Diego surfer type vibes. But he ran this department. It was the weirdest thing, and I wish I could have stayed longer to study it. He was the boss that like that place ran like a Swiss timepiece. And I never saw him do anything. Like I still think about like, so talking about like Fenrir's you know, email about like how everything falls into entropy. This team didn't. And it was a really complicated creative team with a lot of people doing independent work. And this dude did not seem to do anything. He just showed up. He checked in with people. If people had questions about what they should be doing, they just sort of walked over to his desk. He would sort of sit back and be like, and he was just, it was so simple. Sometimes he'd offer real advice. Sometimes he'd be like, well, what's your feeling? And then he would just sort of like let them talk it out and they'd walk away and they'd go crush it. And it was like the entire team. I've never seen so many people with high job satisfaction in one place. And people were like ready to like lay down their lives for this guy. I would have by the end. But I wish I could have stayed long enough to see how he did it, because I think the thing that really sticks with me is that I think we've all worked in places where it's like, we want to have good work-life balance. We want you to stay like passionately engaged and like feeling creative about the work you're here to do. But like a lot of places don't really have the commitment to actually do that and open up that space and cultivate that relationship. This dude actually did, where he was like, he would give people time off. They're like, hey, you need to go reconnect with, you know, whatever extreme sport you're into. Go for it, man. Like, you need to take a couple days to go check out what's happening in paragliding. Yeah, rock on. And the result was this team that was like one of the most highly regarded at the company. And it just, there was never a moment there that felt like it was you were really at a job. And that's the part that like, and of course, like at that point, shortly after I got the offer to come to Waypoint, and that was great. But I do sometimes wonder, like, I feel like I had so much to learn from that dude. It was like I'd gone through all this shit at Red Bull, and then just at the end, I arrived at like, oh, there's like a really like crack team here. And I got a taste of it, and I was like, wow, this runs really differently from any newsroom I've been a part of, any like creative team I've been a part of, and it runs by dynamics that I don't fully understand. And I haven't seen anything like it since. Like, it was a really singular thing. And that was the thing. It was like I went from being utterly depressed working at that place to like genuinely kind of sad when I left it behind to go to Waypoint. Because like I knew Waypoint was a better fit for me. But even though my passion wasn't at Red Bull, it was kind of a job where I was like, that was a great office.
You don't have a passion for energy drinks and their marketing? That's not where your passion lies, Rob Zacny?
They really wanted you to have that passion.
I see.
They desperate and I think to an extent they were very frank. I think it was a decent insight. They were like, everything, like their feeling was being passionate about the spaces they were in would sell the fucking energy drink. And I think by and large they were right. It was total like, lifestyle marketing type shit, but I think it was a decent insight where it was like it was not really approached as how do we sell this fucking can. It was much more like how do you authentically like show your love for space via Red Bull. It's very weird.
How do you make
I never
Red
had
Bull the brand unobtrusive inside these niche communities? How do you make Red Bull the brand feel like a natural fit amongst these people? And like, I'll admit, there is a time when I was an energy drinker and in college, and I'd listen to those Red Bull music mixtapes that they put out that were so good. And so when I saw a Red Bull in our little student union shop, I'd be like, all right, okay, I don't care. Like, this brand no longer seems offensive to me. And it works. Marketing works. Yeah. But going from
susceptible.
Yeah. Going from dysfunction to like a functional place is like taking MDMA. I do feel like.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah, but also it's the like, how does like the places that really do seem to run well without like the cycle of dysfunction building up. And maybe I just wasn't there long enough to see it, but yeah, that's the part where I'm always kind of struck.
Swung around eventually. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, eventually, like that guy did. Eventually, he was like, "Look, I don't know what the future of this place looks like." So he's like, I can't promise like that the job will stay awesome in 2 years. Like, I don't know. And I was like, that's good advice too. Where he was like, "Yeah, I've cultivated a great team. It's a cool little space we've carved out. I don't know that they'll let me keep it. So you should bear that in mind as you're thinking about this new offer you've got." And I was like, that pretty much clinches it. But yeah, that was kind of the opposite of my like wanting to ollie out the door. I had spent months like really thinking about I could just leave LA in the middle of the night, just pack up my car and just like leave and never come back. And by the end, I was in a really different place with the whole thing. So yeah, shout outs to like those very rare, like good managers of good teams. The almost called him Fozziwig because I've watched them up at Christmas Carol way too much, but Fezziwig, the Fezziwigs of the world.
That's nice.
All right, well, I think that will do it for today's show. You can send questions to Gaming@Vice with the subject question. You can keep up with the site as it updates by heading to waypoint.vice.com. Or you can follow us on social media. We are on Twitter at Waypoint, Facebook and YouTube, Waypoint Vice. I am Rob Zacny. You can follow me on Twitter at Rob Zacny. Gita, where can people find you?
You can find me at XOXOGossipGita. Don't at me, but just saying right now, don't do it.
Patrick.
You can find me at Patrick Kolbeck. Also, we're on next Monday. We're not going to have a normal podcast. We're going to be doing a near spoiler cast as I've had my spirit slowly crushed doing the other routes of.
I do want to hear about what your dick smashing appointments have been like. So
fucking Austin Walker saying these side quests and the design of this game is just a commentary, and it's a lower budget game and it's fucking repetitive as hell, but it's got a great story and it's very touching. Anyway, we're doing a spoiler cast on Monday.
Spoiler cast is gonna be fun, huh?
It's gonna be really fun.
No, I adore the game. You just got to get past it.
We got to talk about the difference between authorial intent and like what the player experiences.
it's an interesting rough draft for your Automata in terms of the form. But yeah, we're going to get into stuff like that in the spoiler cast. So if you want to write into gamingadvice.com with like the subject Nier, it'll be a full spoiler cast. So feel free to drop in whatever you want to ask us about the game.
And Dia's going to be on that one, right?
Yeah, as far as I know.
I can't wait to hear Dia just like, you're reductive. It's just low budget. I can't wait to just hear that reductive take. Just like absolutely.
Yeah, just really need to like spend 2 hours getting a machine oil to just understand the cycle of life. Anyway, right into gamingadvice.com.
Well, at least you're going into it with the right attitude.
To hear us talk about Nier next week.
Patrick does not have English major energy. That is
you have been working as a journalist since you were 13 years old energy, which is just different from English major energy. You know, like that's just a different kind of person who uses words all the time. And it's fine.
Cado, where can people find you?
At _Cado_ appears.
All right. Our theme music is by Bowen. The track is Miss You off the EP Pale Machine. Learn more at waypoint.zone/BOEN. That'll do it for this week. We'll be back with that spoiler cast, and then next Friday we'll be back with another episode of Waypoint Radio. Until then, fuck capitalism. Go home.
Did you get that robe from Orson Welles' estate sale? What is it?
Well, MK.
Wow.
MK custom ordered this for Christmas.
Amazing.
It looks opulent.
It is.
Yeah, also could be
Walt.
like a guy who showed up to the Mortal Kombat tournament and like, nah, like that doesn't fit. Like, I don't know. Like a Raiden reject.
It is extremely Orson Welles' estate sale, though. Jesus.
It does. I don't know how Orson Welles went from like a person I only heard of talked about in revered tones to a person I usually use as a comedic like touchstone amongst my friends.
Wine will do that too.
He had that arc.
Yep.
And
Yeah,
also
fair.
he himself is very funny. That's the thing. Like it's
Yeah.
not like he didn't know what he was turning into in his late career.
Fair.
All right, so let's go time.is.
Mm.
All right, let's go at 5 seconds. Patrick making me nervous, not looking like he's ready. And then
No,
just,
I
like,
was
bam.
too much time. I was like, I'll go for a jog.
Wow.
Maybe I'll take a nap. Be a little. I'll wait for 5
I'm
seconds.
not gonna. Okay.
No, kind of. You could just.
I'm gonna bleep that one. I'll bleep that one.
Bleep it.
Yeah,
Bleep it.
cut out everything else and just put that in.
Let
I think
people
it'll be
imagine.
funny. Yeah, it'll be good.
Great.
People
Just
like
imagine what that
mystery.
means.
Yep.
Ooh,
Mm.
mystery.
All right, here we go.